Let's switch to the New England Patriots, who of course have gone through some interesting moments over the last couple of days. They're going through and processing Tom Brady no longer being the quarterback in New England, no longer being the legend in New England, and moving on to Tampa Bay. So what do? Well, they go out there and they sign a wide receiver. No, not a big name. They sign Damiere Byrd from the Arizona Cardinals. And they also signed today Beau Allen, defensive tackle from the Tampa Bay Bucks. So they said, hey, Bucks, you want to steal Brady? We're going to steal Beau Allen, because that's obviously a fair trade-off. But looking at these two signings, I don't mind both of them. I feel like Damiere Byrd is kind of like a Philip Dorsett-esque type of receiver. If you've ever seen him play for the Cardinals, he has great speed. He's not tall. I think he's like 5'8", 5'9", something like that. He's looked pretty good last year. I thought he had some moments where he's shown that he can play on the outside. He can play a little bit in the slot. What I do like most about this move for New England is that they're adding a little bit of speed to their wide receiver group, a group that doesn't have a lot of speed when you're talking about Edelman, N'Keal Harry, Mohamed Sanu. Just in general, they lack to gain separation versus corners. And if Philip Dorsett does leave, which it appears that's going to happen, Byrd would basically be like a one-for-one switch with Philip Dorsett. So you're looking at a guy that's going to be a very nice complementary, like number 4, number 3 maybe, even receiver within this offense for the Patriots. And a guy that can stretch the field, go deep, whether that's down the seam or on the sidelines. He showed that he has good releases down the field. And I do feel like he may not be as consistent with his hands as Philip Dorsett has been for the Patriots, where he's been awesome in that regard. But I do feel like he might add a little bit more in terms of separating from defenders and actually knowing how to utilize that speed at the NFL level, where I feel like Dorsett's very fast. He actually doesn't use it the same way Byrd does. Bird's also been a returner throughout the course of his career at times, so that's another added element to a Belichick team. Now, the other signing was Beau Allen, defensive tackle from Tampa Bay. He is basically a switch or a replacement for Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton is their big nose tackle from the last couple of seasons in New England. He went on to sign with the Lions, which I'll get to, by the way. But Beau Allen, he's basically a veteran run stuffer. You know, you're not going to get anything sexy here in terms of a guy that's going to pass rush. I don't think he has the potential that Danny Shelton has. I don't think he has the next gear, where Danny Shelton sometimes in New England would make some spectacular, like, plays behind the line of scrimmage where you're like, whoa, that was just a feat of athleticism. I don't think Beau Allen really has that gear to him in terms of pure athleticism that Danny Shelton has, but he's just a very solid player in the middle of your defense, good versus the run, and he'll probably just be in the rotation on the D-line in those moments where they need to stop the run, in those moments on early downs next to Lawrence Guy to get maybe a little bit of interior push. That is the type of player Beau Allen is. He's also not too old right now in his career, and I do feel like this is a value signing. This is a classic Patriot signing. You're not getting a player that's going to be a household name. You're not getting a player that's going to be probably a 3-down player for you, but you are getting a guy that's great in certain situations, and that will fit this defense perfectly at nose tackle. So there you go. Beau Allen and Damiere Byrd to the New England Patriots, their first 2 signings of the 2020 offseason. We'll see if they can continue to add to this team, and really, I have no idea what's going to happen post Tom Brady. So we have Beau Allen and Byrd to the Patriots. The New England Patriots have added another playmaker to the secondary, Adrian Phillips of the LA Chargers. Phillips is a super Patriot type of player. He has great versatility. He played strong safety most often with the Chargers. And if I had to really relate him to a player on New England, it would be Patrick Chung. He plays as that kind of Swiss Army knife type of player, mostly as an in-box safety. But what I do want to bring up, which I think kind of allows for many possibilities within the Patriots scheme is that Adrian Phillips has also played a little linebacker at times with the Chargers. Do you remember that playoff game versus the Ravens versus Lamar Jackson just a season ago where the Chargers played like 6 defensive backs on every snap? Adrian Phillips was playing linebacker, and he's typically a strong safety. And that was because he can hold up in the run game, but is also good enough, fast enough to track down ball carriers. So Adrian Phillips, I could see forming like an awesome duo as like a money backer is what they call it. The position where a safety will turn into a linebacker on obvious passing situations, or possibly even in like a nickel defense if you think the team's going to pass, or if you want to force them to run the football. Phillips could even play a little linebacker, but he's played mostly strong safety, in-box safety, in that Seattle-based scheme with the Chargers, where it's like the Cam Chancellor role. You come down, you lay the wood, make the big hits, come down, stop the run. That's mostly what he's been able to do. He's also good in coverage. This season, which he didn't get to play the entire season because of injuries, he played 7 games, so about half the season, so still a pretty good substance there, like in terms of games. And so he graded really well from PFF. He had actually the 8th best grade of any safety in the league. He had an elite grade, one of the only elite grades from PFF at this position. And what I love about him is not only can he play like a bunch of different positions, but I feel like his game, he doesn't really have a weakness within it. He was a former All-Pro on special teams, which of course New England is going to love. So you add that player, you're basically replacing Nate Ebner with a player that actually can play defense, which is interesting. So Adrian Phillips, I think he's going to add to this defense in so many ways, and it's going to allow the secondary to do so many different things. It's not like they already didn't have incredible versatility, but now imagine all the possibilities of what they can do with a player like this. He's great as an inbox guy, so maybe you can utilize Chung in a different role now, or you can play him alongside Chung. Maybe they both play linebacker on 3rd and long. You could have Phillips play a regular strong safety role back deep as a cover safety because he's also good in coverage. You could have him man up versus tight ends, which at times has been a little bit of a weak spot of the Patriots defense in certain seasons or certain games. They have been taken advantage of in that department, like even in the wild card game where Terrence Brooks was playing that role. He wasn't really able to cover. Was it Ferkser of the Tennessee Titans who like kept beating him one-on-one for big plays? So Phillips could end up being the tight end cover guy as well as being that linebacker role. He could also play at safety, but he could also play special teams, but he could also do this and that and that. And then you move Jason McCourty to safety with Devin McCourty, and while you have Phillips at the linebacker spot. So what I really look at this move and say is, okay, Phillips is not only like an addition to the secondary, but he's also like sort of a replacement for Jamie Collins on 3rd down, because Collins left, he was their cover linebacker, but Phillips could now be that because he's held up as a linebacker in the run game before. And when you know teams are going to pass, you don't necessarily need to have those bigger players on the field. And he has enough speed, he has enough ability and all that, and enough strength to hold up versus that run game. In his career, he really hasn't been a huge guy in terms of interceptions. His tops is 2 interceptions in a season, but tackles, he had 94 in 2018, where that's mostly the season where he did play a lot of linebacker, so that makes sense. He also had 63 tackles in 2017. And looking at some of his advanced stats, this past season, he allowed 15 completions on 17 targets, but it was for very low yards per attempt. So per completion, only 7 yards per completion on the completions versus Adrian Phillips, and only 72 air yards in total, a 93 passer rating. So in 7 games, he only allowed 72 air yards. The year before that, in 2018, he allowed 38 completions on 65 targets, which is 58%, which anything under 60 is really good. He allowed 4 touchdowns and had 1 interception, according to Pro Football Reference. So I love Phillips. I think he's really going to provide just a different type of player to this defense. And I could almost see him sort of replacing Patrick Chung because Chung's only getting older. I could see him playing or splitting snaps with Chung because now Chung won't have to play as much. Of course, he's been a player that's been banged up often, especially this past season. So Phillips is a player that can, whenever Chung is hurt or down, or maybe you just split snaps in general between the two, I think they're almost very comparable. Like I brought up at the beginning, they're very comparable in size. They're very comparable in skill, in role, in everything. 5'11", 210, almost exactly like Patrick Chung. So Adrian Phillips adds more versatility to the best secondary in football.